Imagine being a veteran who is injured in Iraq or Afghanistan, yet despite your injuries, you still manage to launch your own business. Then imagine finding out that you are losing out on contracts designated for veterans because a big company found out how to get around the rules. What kind of message does that send to veterans in this country? They got to stop. So, Mr. Kutz, I know that you talk about the fact that no fraud prevention controls exist for this program at SBA. Can you tell us a brief outline of what are some of the key elements of an effective fraud prevention program?
Yes, and I'll give a highlight of it. There should be prevention controls at the beginning to make sure that people getting into the program are eligible. There should be monitoring controls that once you're in the program, that front companies or shell companies aren't passing through work, for example, to large businesses. And at the end of the day, those caught cheating need to have consequences: suspension, debarment, and prosecution. So you need all three of those elements working together for an effective fraud program.
Administrator Mills, based on what we just heard from GAO and recognizing the fraud that already exists in this program, would you develop a process to certify service-disabled veteran-owned small business?
Madam Chair, I want to thank the GAO for this report. And I think we completely agree and take with great concern this particular report and this entire area of fraud, waste, and abuse. But particularly in this area of service-disabled veterans, there are 300,000 of these veterans coming home from these two wars over the next several months. 20% of them are unemployed after 2 years. These veterans over-index in entrepreneurship because they have
Ms.
great
Mill,
leadership. Yes.
I just would like for you to answer my question. Would you develop a process to certify?
So therefore, we are going to, we are looking at the three approaches that Mr. Kutz just described. First, we need to make sure that we have the eligibility right. And I think that was your first point. Correct. So the eligibility has two prongs. One is, are you a service-disabled veteran? The second is, are you a qualified small business? We look at the qualified small business. We are partnering with the VA because the Veterans Administration holds the database that says whether or not they are the ones who do the first prong of the eligibility. So we are going to work with them to make sure we have a combined program that services the two pieces of the eligibility. Then Mr. Kutz had a point about accountability, and that is the other piece that we are committed to. And as I said, these 10 particulars are already referred to the IG, but we are committed to making sure we hold everybody accountable, and that has not been true in the past. That is a change, and that we will commit to go after anybody, and if they are not compliant, we will debar them.
So, in essence, what you are saying to this committee today is that SBA is going to develop a certified process, a process to certify disabled.
Right. The SBA is going to provide a process to make sure we have the upfront piece right in terms of eligibility and work with our partners to make sure we have the right input from the Veterans Administration. And critically, we're going to go after this accountability issue.
Okay. Mr. Nye, in his opening statement, made reference to the fact that you had a meeting with him and quite excited about the fact that the contracting goals for disabled veterans were achieved. So in light of this report, do you think that the SBA data could be overstated now?
Right now, the number is, as Congressman Nye said, our goal is 3%. our achievement in the Recovery Act contracts is 3.8%. We're very pleased with that number, but we share, given this data, the exact same concern. So we need to get to the bottom of this issue of fraud, waste, and abuse, and we need to make sure that we have a real achievement of 3% or greater.
Yeah. Mr. Coates, what is your views on the matter of the contracting goals for disabled veterans being overstated as a result of the investigation that you...
I think they are overstated. Yeah. I mean, for example, the pass-through to the company in Denmark would have counted as a success.
Okay. Ms. Mills, the economic downturn is hitting Iraq and Afghanistan veterans particularly hard. There is, as you mentioned, an unemployment rate of above 11%. And Congress never intended the SBA Service Disabled Veterans Program to award contracts to non-veterans companies who are less likely to hire veterans. Given how high the veteran unemployment rate is, why hasn't the agency done a better job to make sure these contracts actually go to veterans?
So I just want to understand your question.
In light of the report, and given the fact that job creation is a challenge for our economy, and given the fact that thousands of veterans are coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, that there is a high unemployment rate, that you need to do a better job to make sure that the tool that we put in place, this committee, the Congress, to address the issue of entrepreneurship among veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan is achieved. This report reflects quite poorly in terms of making sure that those contracts that are awarded really go to the people that were intended to.
On the service-disabled veteran contract piece, as I said, this is a very important and helpful report. But you're exactly right. This result is unacceptable. We have to make sure that the eligibility, that people are eligible, and that we hold them accountable if they're not. In addition, we actually have a number of other programs specifically for service-disabled veterans. One I want to highlight that we announced last week is that we are funding an expansion in our entrepreneurial area of a boot camp for these service-disabled veterans. And it is built on a model that was done at Syracuse, an extraordinary program. We're expanding it to Florida State, to the University of Connecticut, to Purdue, to Texas A&M, and UCLA in the next year. And one of the things I think we'll be able to do with these boot camps and the veterans that we're working with is make sure they get into this pipeline of contracts and also of access to capital that we have in our other operations.
Madam Chairman, could I comment on that real briefly?
Sure.
I think one of the issues I think you were getting at here is that these veteran firms are not getting the business. They're passing the work through to either international corporations or large businesses who are not going to hire veterans. There is evidence to suggest veteran-owned firms hire veterans. And I think your point is, does this affect employment of veterans? And the answer, in my view, is yes. Thank you.
Mr. Coates, you mentioned that 4 of the 10 case studies in your report were protested through the SBA bid process and found to be ineligible. What happened to these firms after they were found to be ineligible by SBA?
They continued to, with the contracts that they've been awarded through fraud, and in several of the cases, they continued to get new service-disabled, sole source and set-aside contracts.
Were any of these firms recommended for suspension or debarment?
No.
In your opinion, if there are enough evidence that will warrant such debarment or suspension?
Certainly suspension. So the bar is much lower for suspension. Debarment is in a very lengthy process and requires a lot of due diligence and due process. Suspension, yeah, if SBA themselves determined that someone was eligible, one could assume that there was a chance they could suspend them at least for a period of time, and the point is to protect the rest of the government from the fraudsters.
Okay. Mr. Graves, and I will come back with more proof.